I got hit in the seventh by a pitch. I was a left-handed batter. It was a check swing, fastball rode in, hit me on the wrist, right here. So, it hurt pretty good. I get hit a lot, so I didn't really, kind of just shook it off and didn't think much about it until a couple weeks down the road.
Pete Frates is a natural. He's a former Boston College baseball captain who was one of the first Americans to face Daisuke Matsuzaka. He's a hard worker, a charismatic leader, and a giving teammate who had aspirations of playing professional baseball until last season. Something went wrong.
As time went by, I started having a funky gait when I was running. Gripping the ball or gripping certain things kind of became a little more difficult than I knew. There was a little, being an athlete, I knew there was something a little off center there. I Googled either neuromuscular stuff or, something along the lines, maybe put in some of my symptoms or something, and the ALS homepage, ALS Association homepage popped up. So I kind of had my first kind of, uh-oh moment there.
Pete was diagnosed in March of 2012, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. The neuromuscular disease ALS has steadily eaten away at his physical gifts. The disease took Lou Gehrig's life in 1941, and more than 6 decades later, there still is no cure.
Lou Gehrig made his speech in 1939, and that was kind of it for him. He didn't have really much of a chance, and it's 2012 now.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Basically, they said, take some of these supplements and, some zinc, some copper. There's this drug, Rilutech, that was found in 1995. Okay, so this we've heard will slow the progression down somewhat, but it's not where we want to be. And we'll see you in 2 months. Talk about walking out of there and thinking, well, what's the treatment? Well, there is no treatment. Pete spoke of Lou Gehrig being, giving his speech in 1939. 1939 to 1995, no progress in the treatment of this disease.
I wake up every morning and three letters pop in my head every morning, but okay, that's that, and let's see what we're doing today. What's on the agenda? So I try not to dwell on it because it's the hand I've been dealt, and I think it's happened to me for a reason.
Baseball led Pete to his diagnosis, and for the Boston College baseball coach, the game he loves helps him manage his daunting illness.
There is something about baseball, I can't put my finger on it, whether it's spiritual, whether it's a religious experience or I think I used the word therapeutic before, but I see that as really helping Pete. He really does transform when he gets in the dugout with the BC Eagles.
Baseball has been, it's interesting how it's led me to finding what I had. I got hit by a baseball, and then with Lou Gehrig being the face for this disease and being one of the top 5 baseball players of all time in my mind, it's just kind of interesting how baseball has kind of weaved its way throughout my story.
The disease affects his body with each passing day, but it doesn't change Pete. He's ever the leader he's always been, fighting for ALS awareness and advocating for those who don't have the resources that he's been blessed with.
The leadership that he's always exhibited in sports is now spreading to so many more, and all the people that he has affected through his whole life are now being galvanized to help in this quest that we have.
It's just a tremendous thing to be able to sit and watch, and it makes me feel a little bit better, and hopefully one day I'll be either out there playing or coaching again, and that's kind of what keeps me going.
I think she hit me on the phone for
Yeah, she just kept going. And once you get me going,
She Facebook friended me while I was talking to her. My phone went.
Yeah, she.
I know you were providing her with some stuff. She might be able to give you some.
I talked to her about some stuff. We'll see. I'm gonna meet up with her next week, I think.
Yeah, because they're ending down.
We're good. So I guess let's just start by talking about what's gone on with you in the last couple of months. I mean,
Sure.
How did it happen? How did you find out?
So I think this whole, kind of ordeal started with baseball, which has been kind of a recurring theme throughout this kind of process. And it started, last August, late August. We were playing in the championship series for my team, the Lexington Blue Sox, who we were going for our, fifth consecutive intercity league title. So it was an exciting time. Game 6, facing a kid who went to MC and played at UMass. I forget his last name, but I got hit in the 7th or by a pitch. I was a left-handed batter. It was a check swing, fastball rode in, hit me on the wrist, right here. So, it hurt pretty good. I get hit a lot, so I didn't really, kind of just shook it off and didn't think much about it until a couple of weeks down the road. There was some internal bruising, and my hand wasn't really bouncing back very well. The doctors, they said the hand wasn't broken. They said, just give it some time to heal and you should be all right. So once we kind of went down that road for a little while and the hand wasn't responding, I got referred into some hand specialists, and then eventually they said, oh, well, I think we have a nerve issue. You might have struck a nerve. So let's send you to a neurologist. So head over to Beth Israel. So it was all focused on the left arm and left hand. Let's see what we can do to get this better. So met with a neurologist, then they sent me over to a neuromuscular specialist who they said, well, it's more maybe a neuromuscular issue. So okay, so we keep on moving along here, and I ended up getting in the care of Dr. Sidwood Rutkove over at Beth Israel, who specializes in ALS as well as neuromuscular therapy. So we analyzed the left arm and left wrist, and once we kind of started talking some more, I described to him some other symptoms I was having, just kind of general, because he would, kind of prodded me on, hey, is there anything else going on that? So as the time went by, I started having a funky gait when I was running, gripping the ball or gripping some certain things kind of became a little more difficult than I knew. There was a little, being an athlete, I knew there was something a little off center there. So I described to him a little bit. So he made another appointment for me to come in and analyze kind of the whole body here. So as symptoms started progressing other places other than my wrist, I remember I was sitting right here on my couch one day and had the iPad just kind of screwing around on the internet, and I remember I think I Googled either neuromuscular stuff or something along the lines, maybe put in some of my symptoms or something, and the ALS homepage, ALS Association homepage popped up, and so I clicked on it and hit the symptoms button, and there's probably about 12 symptoms listed there, and this was probably October, and probably 10 of those 12 symptoms hit me right, for exactly what I had. So I kind of had my first kind of uh-oh moment there, but didn't want to sound the alarms and go crazy and let people know, hey, I got ALS, because I know doctors go crazy about people self-diagnosing online, WebMD and stuff like that. So I, kept going through the process, seeing the right people, seeing the right doctors, and kind of came to a point in March where after I got MRIs, CAT scans, we have this nerve test where they poke and prod me with electrodes and needles and stuff to test the muscle fibers. So after all this extensive testing, Dr. Rutkove let us know on March 13th that it would be Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, which he prefaced with, listen, I don't throw this around lightly. This is not just something, hey, we'll throw it against the wall, see if it's that. So it was very, for me, it was, okay, this is what it is, because I had kind of already suspected it for a few months already. And so it was tough initially on, my folks and my family and friends, but I made sure right away just to let them know, hey, I've known about this for a while. When you were hanging with me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, it was going on as it is right now. So there's no change, and I'm feeling good. And so we kind of then said, once the formal diagnosis happened, okay, what's the next steps? What do we do here to for health reasons or health improvements was first. And then the next thing was, let's figure out how we can promote awareness and fundraising for the ALS community. So that's kind of where we're at now.
Over these last few months, I guess since October, I imagine the emotions must be all over the place.
Sure.
I guess you seem so strong. People around you talk about how strong you are.
Yeah.
Do you feel a need to be strong?
A little bit, yeah. That was definitely an initial thought was, okay, from that first time I kind of self-realized what was going on, I kind of said to myself, okay, let's not make sure we get proper care and proper diagnosis for it, kind of sound the alarms, like I said, because I don't need people unnecessarily, worrying or going crazy and freaking out. So I made sure, to go about business as usual, as much as I could. And even now, I still try to do that because I don't really feel a need anymore to, hey, I got to be strong and I got to be tough. I've just kind of accepted that's how, my brain is working right now. I don't know why it's doing it, but it's telling me, hey, this is how we're going about it. We're going to be not going to wallow on it. I try not to. I wake up every morning and three letters pop in my head every morning. But okay, that's that, and let's see what we're doing today. What's on the agenda? So I try not to dwell on it because it's the hand I've been dealt, and I think it's happened to me for a reason, for sure. I kind of feel like I have a full-time job now to promote some awareness and get the word out and be hopefully a strong figure for some people who don't have the advantages that I do. My support network, the great things that I've had done in my life, as well as just my strong positive attitude that's been instilled in me since I was young. So there's a lot. I know there's people out there who may be struggling with this that don't have all those advantages that I have. So if I can help them in any way, then that's what I'm going to try to do.
You've learned more about ALS and those three letters than anyone should in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
What's something that I guess people don't know about it that surprises you regularly?
It's not an old man's disease. It's typically 55 to 75-year-old men who get this, and it's I'm a shining example of, hey, this is not your grandfather's. The mental picture people have, I think, a lot of times on commercials or brochures or whatever is, some older gentleman kind of slumped over in a wheelchair. And the thought is on a federal level with, research and development and fundraising is, people with ALS don't live too long. So why are we going to pump a ton of money into, figuring out how to fix it when they get it at 85 and, hey, you had a pretty good run. So, it's almost like, gee whiz, what's the point? But, ALS doesn't have a preference. It doesn't care who you are. If you're old, you're young, black, white, red, yellow, male, female. It's kind of just does what it does and shows up unwelcomed, and so that's why I'm trying to really be an advocate and a voice for the young folks who do have it, or rather everyone, because everyone deserves a chance to get better and live a fruitful life. And I think, with it being 2012 now, with a lot more focus being put on the ALS community, I think we're almost there, because there's some exciting things happening. And I keep telling everyone around me that Lou Gehrig made his speech in 1939, and that was kind of it for him. He didn't have really much of a chance. And it's 2012 now, so there's a lot of smart people out there doing a lot of good things, and as long as we put more focus on it, and if I can help that in any way, then that's what I'm going to do.
You mentioned Gary, Kurt Schilling. You're talking about how baseball
Sure.
kind of led you to this self-diagnosis.
Right.
Has your appreciation for baseball, I guess, you talk about baseball's role in all of this,
Sure.
and how important it is to you now versus, I get perspective.
Yeah, well, it's funny because even without the diagnosis, baseball has become far more important to me in the last couple of years than it ever was. Played football, hockey, and baseball in high school. Hockey was always my number one. I played it the most. I enjoyed it the most. And, then it was football. We had some really good teams in high school, and I really fell in love with football as I got older. And baseball I was always just, pretty good at, and I loved it, getting out with the guys. But it was, you know, school season in the spring, quick summer, and that was it. And I was better get back on that ice and train. So until I got to college, that was the first time I ever really solely focused on baseball. And in college, I kind of felt as though I put a lot of pressure on myself to do well and perform, and I was still, as ask any of my coaches, they'll tell you I played baseball like a football player. I was very raw, ran around like a crazy man, and didn't realize the intricacies of the game until later in life. So once I started playing back for fun again in the summer leagues, with the Lexington Blue Sox and even over in Europe, I found a new appreciation for the game. I was learning about how to take advantage of some younger players who weren't as experienced as I was, take better angles in the outfield, take an extra base. That was one of the biggest things I learned, was how to make sure you on a first to third, or think a double out of the box. These are a lot of things I really didn't think of when I was younger. So now when I have the chance to go back and work with the Boston College baseball team, or see any of the games around the North Shore, I don't care who's playing. It's a weird thing for me that I used to just say, oh, this is kind of boring. Even going to Red Sox games, I would, all right, sixth inning, it's time to go. But now I just watch the game, and every pitch I have things racing through my mind, and situations, and trying to figure out what the batter's trying to do to the pitcher, vice versa. And it's almost like a chess game that I never looked at it before like that. So baseball has been, it's interesting how it's led me to finding what I had. I got hit by a baseball, and then with Lou Gehrig being the face for this disease and being one of the top 5 baseball players of all time in my mind, it's just kind of interesting how baseball has kind of weaved its way throughout my story. And now that I get to have a little extra time to watch and take it in, it's almost, my old man said, and he was asked by a local newspaper, and he said it was almost therapeutic for me. And I hadn't even thought of that until I read that article. And I guess it is, because once I see a game going on, it takes kind of everything for me not to pull over and just sit and watch. So it's something I enjoy, and I think it's a great game, especially when the weather gets nicer out here. It's just a tremendous thing to be able to sit and watch, and it makes me feel a little bit better, and hopefully one day I'll be either out there playing or coaching again, and that's kind of what keeps me going. So
the game means a lot to you, but I know the people in it are
sure
just as important. I know the ACC has been very supportive,
Absolutely.
And the Boston College family, baseball family.
Yep.
Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the Boston College family has welcomed me with open arms, which has been tremendous. Coach Mike Gambino, has been the most gracious, warm, kind, welcoming figure, you can imagine, not only to myself, but to my family. He's always checking in, making sure we have what we need, asking me, and he's very inclusive. He's not saying, hey, hey, sick boy, you're going to be our director of ops because it'll help us out, generate some buzz around the team or something like that. It's absolutely none of that. It's, he puts me to work, and he wants my input on how things are going with the team. He wants to know, after games, hey, what'd you think, about what happened here, or situations. He'll ask me throughout a game, hey, what do you think? And that's really cool that he's coaching at the highest level of college baseball, and he wants to know from me any suggestions that I have, or how he thinks I can help out, and just to feel included as part of the team. And guys on the team have been tremendous. Not looking at me like an outcast, because I think the fact that I did wear that uniform and I did play on that field, they feel pretty comfortable with me being around, and anything I can do for those guys. It's funny now that I have my fifth year college reunion coming up, so I'm almost like the old man on the bench there. But it's just fun hanging around those guys, and Coach DiFilippo and the rest of the athletic department over there has been more than gracious, and just welcoming me back. And you mentioned the ACC. Every place we've gone, they've either talk to me and tell me they're thinking about me, or Coach Hughes, who recruited me at BC down at Virginia Tech, him and Mike Gambino worked on a ALS Awareness Day at VTech. That was kind of the first one we did, and the whole team, both teams wore BP jerseys with the ALS ribbon on the front and my name and number on the back, and that was kind of the start of it, which kind of said, oh, okay, this is a little bigger than myself here. This is a real kind of, this is a real opportunity for me to get out there and talk to some people about this disease. And every place we've gone, people come up to me who I've never met before, and hey, I've heard your story, or I've talked to so-and-so, and they just want to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, we're pulling for you. And it just means so much every day. And so the BC community and the ACC, they've just been awesome thus far.
That's great. Last question, and it's a tough one, but kind of let us into your world, I guess, as far as what's it like day to day? What are the things that you notice day to day?
Sure.
That you're like, God, is this happening now or that happening?
Yeah.
I guess I'm very unaware of that.
Yeah, day to day. So it's interesting. It's the Bill Belichick approach. It's one day at a time, one game at a time. It's different things can kind of pop up. I have good days and bad days, but I'd say lately more good days have been coming around, which is great. But just for people who may not know much about the diseases, it affects your daily living. Obviously, my walk is, some days I walk fine, some days I walk, kind of funky. Buttoning this shirt didn't happen by itself. Putting on shoes, tying shoes, I can do it, but imagine taking 15 minutes to tie your shoes. So that's kind of annoying. So I've kind of set aside all that and said, hey, this is the new norm, and it's not a big deal. So the fact that I can have my folks, friends, girlfriend help me out with some of these things, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not bashful about asking. It's because my pants got to get on in the morning, so somebody's got to help me do it. So it's interesting because the disease kind of affects people in different ways, in different areas. So some folks will lose their speech right away. Some folks will lose their ability to walk right away. I'm kind of just have kind of a general malaise, kind of sluggishness with my symptoms. The left hand hasn't bounced back since I got hit by the pitch, which I don't think has anything really to do with getting hit. I think it has more to do with, hey, I have a neuromuscular disease. I'm sure the nerves wanted to regenerate, but once the disease kind of took over, I think they said, no, we'll just shut her down. So, having the ability not to use your hands as well as you want to can be frustrating at times, but I try to keep my frustration level at pretty low because, again, I'll use Coach Belichick. It is what it is. I can't change it. It's what's happening to me. It's the hand I've been dealt, and that's how I'm going to go about it. So if if I'm scared or I project that outwardly, or I, wallow and I sulk and I feel sorry for myself, that not only doesn't help me, it doesn't help anyone around me or anyone who's suffering with this disease. I see no point to it. So going about my day-to-day activities as positively as I can, as passionately as I can, that's what's getting me through the day. And really not thinking about it in terms of I have a quote-unquote terminal illness, because I don't think it can be categorized as that anymore. I think we're slowly moving towards this is a syndrome that I have that'll be rectified at some point. So, it's like having an injury. You rehab and you get back out there. So that's how I'm treating my day to day, and I feel pretty good. And I'm just enjoying being around the game of baseball, which I love so much, and just having a great time promoting awareness and meeting new people, and meeting people in the community, and looking forward to just kind of getting the word out there. So that's Matt, my friend.
Thanks, man.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jeb.
That's great.
Yeah.
Just remember you playing the ball off the wall where it got caught in the ladder. I don't know if that.
Oh.
I do remember that.
Yeah. That was sophomore year. That was sophomore year. That was a different game. That was the year
I
before.
remember that bomb clear as day though, and
Yeah.
I remember how were you a sophomore?
I was a junior.
Okay.
Junior that in '06. Yeah.
It was by so far the highlight of the day for everyone there. The energy that
Well,
you hit it, and you were like, it was like watching somebody have the happiest day of their life.
well, yeah, it was a pretty good day, but it was it was probably game 2 of, you have your consolation game first, then you have us, and it's, it's probably 100 people in the stadium, and man, what a gross day it was that day. I remember it was cold, it was raw, it was rainy, and but Coach Hughes always did a great job of making sure we knew that the bean pot was pretty important. You see, how our hockey guys won the bean pot yet again this year, and it's they generate huge crowds and huge alumni following, whereas we don't. It's it's kind of a smaller trophy in the sense of awareness, so that people know about it. But at the same time, you're battling for the bean pot, and I grew up. Both my folks went to BC, so I've been going to bean pots forever, and so just knowing that we have the opportunity to win, quote unquote, a championship, I mean that was enough drive in itself. And so I was fortunate enough, had a pretty good game there, and for people who know me, know I'm not the best left on left hitter out there, and the fact that I got a a hanging lefty curveball, and just kind of to put a good swing on it, and I got out of the box like it was going to be a double, and I didn't realize I had hit it that far, and it was a pretty surreal, kind of cool moment. And we have a picture that's getting used all over the place for the website and stuff like that, of me holding the bean pot and kind of giving a yell out, to the team, and kind of celebrating. But what people don't see behind that picture, they see, the green monster in the background, my teammates surrounding me. It looks like a glorious, out of a movie scene. But what they don't realize is I'm looking up in the stands at like my mom and dad and like 4 other people that are at Fenway. So it was, I don't know who I was yelling at, but it was just really exciting. And I just try to, with the guys now that, I'm trying to, let them know that they're playing the best game in the world. And, any day is a great day to win a game, and just to play with passion and fervor, and, just to have fun, because it's, I think back, it's just putting a smile on my face how fun that day was. So, and being kind of coming full circle here, being able, the Red Sox were gracious enough to offer me the opportunity to throw the first pitch on ALS Awareness Day in the Major Leagues on May 30th. It's the first time I'll be back on the field since then, and it's kind of a cool experience. And I just hope that once again it can, reach some people who may not know about the disease, and seeing a young guy out there who in fact hit a home run on this field but can maybe barely throw a baseball now, maybe hopefully that'll kind of jaw their shift their thinking, and kind of make them be aware of what's going on with this disease. So
speaking of the Red Sox, you were one of the first American hitters to face Daisuke.
Yeah.
And that experience must have been pretty sweet, just facing off against the Red Sox.
I thought, yeah. Well, every year when we faced the Sox, it was, being a kid from the North Shore and going to Sox games my whole life, that was obviously one of the highlights of the year. And, the guys are always so cool, when we're watching them take BP and they shoot the breeze with us and take pictures. We try not to, ask for autographs and stuff, because you don't want to be seen as that guy, but they're really cool and hanging out with us. So the funnest part, I think, about the whole Daisuke thing was that we were going to be the first American hitters to see him in the Red Sox uniform. So the lead up and the press coverage was really kind of surreal for us, because a lowly BC team working on the bubble in the winter, and we got news cameras everywhere, and they were asking questions about it. And then I think one of the best pictures we have from that day was a picture that was taken from behind me when I was talking to all the Japanese press. And I'm 6'2", and all these people were barely up to my chest, and I'm addressing all of them. It was pretty funny. And they just were asking, "What if you hit a home run?" I said, just I'm hoping to make contact, and sure enough, at the at bat was fouled off a few pitches, but ended up, I ended up striking out on a fastball. I think, he really humped up on that one, and it was, but it was just fun to, be out there, the whole spectacle, and getting the opportunity, and also, you know, the year before I kind of learned from my at bat the year before against Schilling, where with Daisuke I probably had an 8-pitch at bat, 9-pitch at bat, really took in the experience and enjoyed it. Whereas, you know, like I said, being a raw, you know, raw athletic kind of kid playing baseball like a football player, didn't realize, hey, buddy, you're probably not going to face Schilling ever again. Maybe we'll take a few pitches and kind of, you know, get your fill up here. But instead, he threw a fastball down the middle and, you know, trying to get ahead of me, and I took a swing at it, flew out to left, and, you know, I barreled it up, which I told him when I spoke. Kurt's been great, and he's called me, and so he left me his first voicemail. He left me. He made sure to let me know that, you know, I'm 0 for 1 against him lifetime, and that he did get me out in that at bat in 06, and so it's also interesting how this theme of baseball has weaved its way, because Kurt, being one of the biggest advocates for the ALS community, is, you know, the fact I've actually faced him in a live at bat is kind of interesting. I maybe I don't know, maybe one of the only ALS patients that's faced Kurt on a deal, if not the only one. So Kurt's been great, and he's reached out and let me know that anything I need, you know, just to give him a buzz. We were down at North Carolina playing the Tar Heels, and we were sitting around after the game with coach and staff and watching baseball tonight. And at the close of the show, Kurt, you know, unbeknownst to me, gave me a shout out and said, hey, we're thinking about you. And all of a sudden, Facebook and text and my phone starts blowing up. And so he's just been great. And to have such a advocate and a big star like Kurt be on our team, quote unquote, is really something special. And, you know, the great work he's done is just, I appreciate it so much more now than I did before, obviously. But I think, you know, going forward, I'm going to rely on him to help us out, and hopefully he can give me some suggestions of how I can be a better advocate and a better voice. So.
Awesome. Thanks again.
All right, director.
All right, so let's just start with tell us about Pete in general. What kind of guy is he?
Well, Pete is a remarkable guy. He's always been the leader of all the teams. Even when he was a young kid, he just loved to play ball. And I always think about this disease and wonder if there's something I could have prevented, because they say that there's concussion-related symptoms. They talk about being exposed to metals. They talk about heredity in the disease, but it really means they don't know how it happens or why it happens. But I think back on Pete and his athletic skills, and I couldn't have stopped him. He would run through a brick wall if he could, and he'd come up laughing. He just always loved to play ball. But talk about energy, enthusiasm, intelligence, just a great kid. He always wanted to please my wife and I, and unlike my older daughter or my younger son, who had you know, independent streaks of their own, Pete always wanted to be a part of a team, and that's what I think of when I think of Pete. His athletic skills and gifts, but also his leadership qualities, but just being a team member.
You're obviously an immensely proud dad, and, you know, talk about that pride as he's transitioned into this chapter of his life, and what have you learned about him since that diagnosis? Well,
you know, we've had a chance to hear what Pete has to say, and I'm not really surprised at all. And he keeps talking about the way he was brought up. Well, it's also the way he is. He is a dynamic guy. He's taking this thing full on. He's giving it his all. But one thing that he keeps talking about is he never wants to wallow. He never wants to sulk, because that's a moment of time and energy that's lost. He wants to be progressive, proactive. The shame of this all is that a 27-year-old guy has their full life to go. My mother just recently passed at 87. That means, you know, I want him to also have the next 60 years of his life for his chapter to unfold. And that right now seems to be in question, because there is no known cure. And that's why we're bringing this disease, Pete's story, to the masses. There's got to be some way, somehow, that this disease can be cured. There's got to be somebody working on some sort of fragment of an idea. Let's go forward and let's see if we can get it. If I had the time myself, I'd go back to school and see if I could help in any way.
This is a tough question, but I think it's important. I mean, as a father who's around it all the time, are there moments, kind of eye-opening moments for you as you learn firsthand about the disease and kind of things that surprise you about it on a day-to-day level?
Well, the thing that is awful about it is, I think, is the progression right now. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand this. All I know is that as the father of a top athlete, I've always studied Pete. If I could help him in any way at an at-bat, or even when he was playing football or hockey, if I could give him some advice, because as any parent would, you would concentrate not only on the game, but also specifically on your own child and how they were playing. Give them encouragement, help them with any way of just that coaching, that bond that he and I would have. So what I'm doing, unfortunately, is I'm studying what he can no longer do if he can't change the channel on the radio in the car, if he can't button his shirt, if he can't tie his shoes. These are some of the things that are happening a little bit too quick for me. But naturally, your parental instinct kicks in. I haven't had to use it in quite some time, but this is the unfortunate part of the disease. But Pete's been great. As he said, there's no embarrassment with him. We want to protect his dignity, of course, but we also want to live life as quickly as we can. So if we have to be on the team bus at, say, 9:30 in the morning, then we have to move a little bit quicker, and that's where I step in a little bit more than I had to in the past.
That team bus, he was talking about baseball so poetically. It's almost it's become almost a religious, philosophical entity in a way. Baseball, can you talk a little bit about that and his relationship with baseball?
Yeah, that's a great point. I personally would prefer to watch hockey or football, something a little bit more active, but there is something about baseball. I can't put my finger on it, whether it's spiritual, whether it's a religious experience, or I think I used the word therapeutic before, but I see that as really helping Pete. He really does transform when he gets in the dugout with the BC Eagles. He becomes his old self. In fact, he's been encouraging. I hear his voice loud and clear, talking about just always encouraging some of his the teammates on the team right now. He's that very strong vocal leader, so he's trying to bring his passion to the sport to the next generation, which is exactly what's needed.
The idea of hope. It's very different for the Frates family now versus what it was a year ago. I think it's very different for the Frates family than it is for probably most families in this neighborhood. Can you just talk about how important that is?
Well, sure. I think about my life and our life, and we've been so blessed and happy and just kind of cruising through life in a way, because everything seemed to be so perfectly falling into place. The American dream, all the wonderful things that we've experienced, our wonderful support system, family, even some of the material things that we've been blessed with. But now none of that matters, because now we're that family that I've always watched on TV or read about. We're that family, so it's our turn, unfortunately. The thing is, if we could do a liver transplant, or if we could get on some sort of for instance, when I was a kid, polio was the scourge, but we'd have a drink and now it's eradicated. Why is it AIDS, HIV, which Magic Johnson was the great spokesman back then? It was a death sentence in the early 80s, 90s. Now that seems to be suppressed. Why can't we find something out for this? So yeah, the only thing we can really latch onto is hope itself. Now we do hear that there's so many great breakthroughs in the works. We hear about a lot of money that's coming in. We hear about tax breaks that the government is giving for these kind of designer or boutique type illnesses. The unfortunate stat that Pete told me the other day is that there are 30,000 people afflicted with this disease, but it's always constant, because every 90 minutes someone's diagnosed and every 90 minutes somebody passes away. So what we need really is that cure. What we need is hope. That's the only thing we can look for. I don't want to be sitting here as an older guy and the top story tonight is, oh, by the way, great, we cured ALS. And if it's too far gone for Pete, or if he's no longer with us, that would be devastating. So I've got to figure out a way that we can do this. And the only thing we can do really is just get our message across. Unfortunately, we are that family. You hear about families like us suffering tragedies all the time. It's new for us right now, but we've got to figure out a way. So yeah, hope is the only thing we can latch on to. Yep.
That's great. So the Frates family, from your perspective, talk about their strength together.
Well, it's an amazing family. You know, I've been married to Nancy's sister for 28 years now, so I've known John at least that long. Just a tremendous support network. You know, I'm helping out raising awareness for Pete's fund, and just the whole network of folks that I've come across over the past 8 weeks. I've probably spoken with or been in touch with over 1,000 people, which is just absolutely amazing. Just an outpouring of support towards the cause, and trying to raise awareness for this disease.
And I think the awareness. I was talking to Nancy before we started rolling on stuff, and we were talking about that, and it's like, I think everyone's aware of ALS and that it's Lou Gehrig's disease, and we saw Kurt Schilling's cleats, but I feel like very few people actually have any idea how it manifests itself and what it really is. Do you get that same feeling?
Absolutely. Well, I didn't realize that there's only 30,000 people in the U.S. that have this disease ongoing, and every 90 seconds somebody is diagnosed, and every 90 seconds somebody passes away from the disease. So that is 0.1% of the total U.S. population of 300 million. Now you look at cures, and you look at the government. You look at the big pharmaceutical companies. Probably may not be the best business model for a pharmaceutical company to for the investment that they need to put in to get that. But still, here we are in 2012. We've got to get rid of this.
As you know, Pete, as a kid that you grew up with, Pete as the strong man that he is now. I mean, talk a little bit about your nephew.
Well, Pete's a remarkable kid, and when I look at Pete, I still see the 8-year-old, sitting at McDonald's with the French fry flying out of his mouth as he's talking, and I've got my kids lined up at the table, and when somebody needs something, Pete, you're in charge. Watch everybody, make sure they're all set. Okay, Uncle, I'll be fine. So he's always been that happy-go-lucky kid that you could give him anything, and you'll know it'll get done. And very dependable, very conscientious, very humble and polite. And that's just Pete. And just as I talked about his network of people just coming out of the woodwork, for Pete. It's just the impact I think he has on people is it gives you goosebumps. It's just amazing.
He called himself a shining example of the fact that it's an indiscriminating disease,
right?
And that here's this guy I saw him play, and he stood out among these great athletes. And can you talk a little bit about that curse, I guess?
Yeah, there's nothing, you can't explain it. And, everybody has a ticket when they're born. And, he probably has his a little bit more filled out than we do. And that's, kind of how I look at it. And, hopefully, we can eradicate this and arrest, the disease with, if they can't find a cure, at least they can find something that can arrest the progression. So perhaps they take his hands and they take his legs, but they can't take his spirit and what he means to other people. And hopefully they can, at least they get to that point, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Thanks, Artie.
Oh, thank you, Jeb.
I appreciate it. Anything you're ready? All right. Tell us about your son. I guess so you haven't met him. What strikes you about your son?
My son is the light of the world. He is, I think a lot of people over the years, I've been blessed and very fortunate to be his mom and watch him grow from this little light as a little boy, running around, always going. I always said Pete was always motion in all times, always. I mean, he just always was the kid that wanted to play with the ball, throw the ball, call a friend, get the kids together, play hide and go seek. And then he moved on, you know, into his middle school, high school years, and developed into the leader that he expressed as being captain of so many sports teams, and a school leader in high school. And he's always been an inspiration to others, always. And he's always been that bright light.
You know, you and I were talking a little bit before. You brought up the idea of hope, and it's a word that gets tossed around
Sure
in so
does.
many ways and slapped on posters, and you know, but it's certainly a different word for you now than it was a year ago.
It's what we live by every minute, every day now, hope. And it is what fuels our motor right now. It's doing things such as this that we can get out and let people know. I think my husband spoke about us being that family now. And I've had that conversation with quite a few people, getting your life changed in a minute. And in one way, it's given our family a new purpose. It is that there is a reason why we have been brought into this community. And you know, the statistics that have been thrown around about this disease are mind-blowing when you think about it. And the fact that this disease is non-discriminating. It's for anybody at any time. There's two types of ALS. There's a familial ALS, which there are families that are affected by this, and we're talking members. We've heard stories of, you know, 5 contemporary members of one family with this disease, but that's only 10% of the people that are affected by this disease. What I found really interesting when Pete was first diagnosed is that they used the word sporadic. And I thought to myself, now that's a word that just, when you think of the word sporadic, it just means something that happens in an instant. And it's called, that he, you know, it's sporadic ALS. So that kind of really resonated with me. Just, it's a word that really does describe this whole thing that we're dealing with right now. It's just something that happened that kind of came down and hit us out of the blue. And so we do have hope. And that is what every day is about, is getting the word out, letting people know about this disease, about our family, about our journey, and how we are looking to help those researchers and the people that are committed in the medical community to this disease, to finding a cure and helping and find a protocol. So that is our what keeps us getting up every day and doing what we're doing.
I think, you know, Brian and I were driving here on the way, and I think we're pretty, like, aware people, but I think we know more about ALS now than we did an hour ago, a lot more. Mm-hmm. And so can you talk about why getting people's awareness, making people aware, why is that important? What are the tangible benefits of that?
It's to find a treatment. You and I had a great conversation before. You know, when we got this diagnosis, it was, okay, you've been handed this disease. Well, in my experience, I've had personal experience with another disease, and you know, when I got my diagnosis, it was, you know, you have this, okay, so now we're going to put you on this medication, we're going to do this test, we're going to give you this treatment, we might have to do this surgery, that type of thing. You know, the strategy was lined up ahead of me, and thankfully it worked, and I'm here today. But with my son, I was given a diagnosis, and basically they said, take some of these supplements and, you know, some zinc, some copper. You know, there's this drug, Rilutech, that was found in 1995, okay? So this, we've heard, will slow the progression down somewhat, but it's not where we want to be. And we'll see you in 2 months. Talk about walking out of there and thinking, well, what's the treatment? Well, there is no treatment. Pete spoke of Lou Gehrig being, you know, giving a speech in 1939 to 1995. no progress in the treatment of this disease. So just like you said, an hour ago, you heard the ALS, you saw the ALS on Kurt Schilling's cleat, but until you met us and heard our story, wow, now you're really gonna know what ALS is. And so you'll go back to your circle and you'll let them know. And hopefully that will help fund the research dollars and get people to start realizing that this disease is sporadic, can be very devastating to families that have it. And the more people that are getting educated and knowledge about this, the more funding that'll go into these researchers that are working. This medical community that we've had insight to in the last 8 weeks are so dedicated, but yet such a small army of them. And so we need to get this going. We need to get this on people's agenda. If it's political, if it's medical, if it's dollars, whatever it is, that's our quest right now.
Everyone has spoken so glowingly about Pete's leadership as in all these sports and in these communities. Talk about his new leadership role when it comes to this cause, and could it be more important?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a mom of a child that I've seen mature into this amazingly disciplined, responsible leader, mentor, coach, inspiration. I do believe that word hope again, and my spirit tells me that there is a plan here, that this is the new place that he's supposed to go, and he's supposed to lead people to understand this. It's only been 8 weeks, and we have Nessun in our house videotaping us. So yes, it is in this crazy world that we find ourselves in right now, this is what we have decided as a family with Pete's leadership in this, because none of this would be possible without Pete saying, yeah, this is what I have to do, is help others while I'm trying to help myself. And so the leadership skills you're seeing it. It's palatable when you meet him. And the intertwining of baseball into this is just, the icing on the cake for the whole thing, because the leadership that he's always exhibited in sports is now spreading to so many more, and all the people that he has affected through his whole life are now being galvanized to help in this quest that we have. It's been 4 weeks now since we had the ALS awareness game at BC. I mean, 2,200 people came to that game. Hopefully that's 2,200 people that have gotten more education and more insight into this. And they've gone back and they're talking, I think back to when I was a kid in the commercial that, and so on and so on and so on. And that's what we're trying to do. And hopefully, like I said, in the short 8 weeks that we've been dealing with this, we've started to make some impact.
That's wonderful.
Great. Thank you.